doing? Give me some yells. Give me some yells. Ow! Me with your headlights. With your cars. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much to Joe and Jason for having me here. My name is Lenora. If you don't know who I am, that's okay. Why would you? I am a horror host. That's horror with an H, 2 R's, or 3 R's, 2 O's. And I have a show called Midnight Rental. You can find it on YouTube. But enough about me, because tonight we are here to talk with a couple very, very interesting people. And one of them is sitting right beside me. I've got Kevin Tenny. Director, give him some honks, yells, and flashes with the headlights, too. Come on.
Yeah!
Can you hear Kevin?
Can you hear me?
Higher.
No. Oh, we can't hear Kevin. I'll keep vamping until we can. So,
Hello? Oh.
Yeah!
Give me a live mic. After telling me specifically they were hot.
they purposely gave you a dead mic.
I swear.
Given your line of work, I suppose that's appropriate.
Yeah. They know how much I can talk.
Yeah, we're gonna between the two of us, we'll get the light, and then we'll get cut off after a certain point.
Yeah.
But Kevin, how does tonight find you? We're here to watch Witchboard.
I know. I can't wait to see it. I hope it's good. I've heard nice things about it, but you know, sometimes people are wrong.
And now, this was your first feature.
Yes.
And I mean, not even like right out of college, you had begun writing it in college.
No, I did write it in college as a screenwriting assignment, and a friend of mine from the school quit school and was working for a commodities broker, and the guy wanted to try raising money for movies, and he said, I know a script. So he gave it to him, he read it, he loved it, he started raising money, and I actually left school 4 units short of my master's degree to go direct my script, Witchboard.
So you missed out on the Masters for Witchboard.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good trade-off.
It's a perfect trade-off. You gave a gift to the world. And
Okay.
but beginning with Witchboard, what was the budget on that?
Well, the producers like to say it was $2 million, but it was probably closer to 750,000.
And we were talking earlier today at lunch, and you were telling us about how that was not only your first feature, but that was your first time on a movie set. You had created short films.
I'd never been on an actual full-blown production before. I'd done short films at USC, even won an Emmy, but yeah, I hadn't done anything more than 20, 30 minutes long, and shot on 16 millimeter or Super 8.
And then taking something that you had written, and then now you're directing it, and you're in charge of a full crew of people.
Yep.
How difficult was that?
It wasn't as bad as... It wasn't that bad, because even on a bigger budget and a bigger schedule and a bigger crew, it's all still point the camera there, shoot that, cut that. So I knew how to make a movie. I was worried that I was like one of the youngest people on set, and the whole crew had all done, 10, 20, 30 films already. So, are they going to take me seriously? And at one point, I was really questioning myself, and I was standing there, and the DP, who had done like 40 films and was probably a good 10, 15 years older than me, and I said, I'm sorry this is going so slow. I'm usually much better organized. And he said, what are you talking about? You're great. You're probably the best director I've ever worked with.
Wow.
And that gave me, he just said it as a throwaway in passing, but I lived off of that for the rest of the film. I thought, okay, well, if he could say that. And then he went on and shot so much television. He's won like 3 or 4 Emmys. So having him say that meant a lot and gave me the confidence I needed to finish, just man up and do the freaking movie.
Well, yeah, that's the perfect fuel to keep you going, to reignite any self-doubt that you may have had. And going back to the script, the fact that we're dealing with a Ouija board, had you had any prior experience that went poorly with a Ouija board?
No, I don't want to give any spoilers in case some of you have not actually seen the film before, but basically I was living in Alameda, which is an island in the Bay by San Francisco, and I lived in an apartment that was an old Tudor home that had been turned into like 5 or 6 different apartments. And I had a little housewarming party with about, half a dozen friends. And one guy brought a Ouija board and they started playing it. And I thought, I wasn't a big horror fan at the time, but I was, even films I didn't see, I was aware of, because I was a big cinephile even then. And I remember thinking while he was talking about it and they were doing the planchet around the board, I thought, I don't think I've ever even heard of a horror film or any film that actually centered on a Ouija board. And I thought, that could be something. And I just locked it away. And then when I went to USC a couple of years later, and you had to write a feature screenplay, I thought, what am I going to write about? And then the Ouija board popped back in my head, and I started doing research on Ouija boards, and that's when I discovered progressive entrapment and all this stuff. That so much of the stuff in the film is based on, I don't want to say true events, because I don't really believe this stuff, but events that people had claimed had happened to them. And I think that's one of the reasons it played with an audience, because it had that, it felt just real enough that it could happen, as Judy Tenuta used to say, it could happen. So I think by keeping it as based in reality as I could for a supernatural film, I think that's possibly why it worked with an audience so well.
Oh, well, my mom was, and still is, Captain Catholic, and I was just absolutely forbidden to touch a Ouija board in her sight. She didn't know, I would go to friends' houses at sleepovers, and we would use them. But during production, did you ever find any creepy situations because of it?
No. When you shoot 35 millimeter film professionally, it comes in big rolls. And when you break your 100th roll, there's a tradition that you stop and you have a glass of champagne. And we happened to break our 100th roll while we were shooting the night scenes in the cemetery. And after we wrapped, some of the production crew said, we're going to take one of the Ouija boards and we're going to drink some champagne on a grave and see if it works. You want to do that? And again, I don't believe, but I also don't believe in taking chances. So I said, no, I think I'm just going to go home and sleep, which is what I did. But they were all alive and well the next day, so I assume nothing horrible happened.
And you have such an interesting dynamic between Linda, Jim, and Brandon, but Jim and Brandon in particular. You created this bromance.
Yeah. Well, I know a lot of people always try to read gay overtones into it, but I mean, most men, my wife has like 20 girlfriends. Most men I know, you have 1 or 2 really good friends, and if you've had them long enough, they become like brothers to you. And that was this. In high school, I'd had a friend, we were really close, and our friendship got ruined by both of us pursuing the same girl. And I just thought, you know what, if that happened to me, I'm sure it's happened to other guys, and that's something that you can work with.
And now, from my understanding, the film originally had a different title.
Well, yeah, I wrote the script, and we shot the entire film as Ouija. And then the lawyers came in and said, do you have permission? I said, we need permission. I thought it was like a generic term at this point, like Kleenex. They said, it probably is, and you would probably win if you sued them for that, the permission. He said, but without it, no one will give you E&O insurance. You get your film insured so that if you get sued for something like that, and if the insurance thinks you're going to get sued, they will not insure you, and you can't get into a theater without the insurance. So when I had researched the boards, I'd learned that they used to be called, before they created the name Ouija, they used to be called Witchboard. So I said, well, we'll just call it Witchboard. The downside to that was in the party scene, I actually had him say that, but the film was running long, and I said, well, we never even go back to Witchboard. Let's just cut that. So we cut it, and then after the cut was locked, we retitled it Witchboard. So the word Witchboard is never actually used in the entire movie.
And then the reception to it, once it was released, were you surprised? Were you?
You know what? I wasn't, only because everyone who makes a film They think they're changing the world. They think their film's going to be a hit. So it was only because I was naive enough to believe it was going to be a hit that I wasn't surprised by the fact that it was a hit. Nowadays, I would absolutely go, holy, I look back now and, you know, we're sitting here on a stage almost 40 years later. That surprises me. This film is still popular and still gets watched, and they've re-released it on DVD and Blu-ray and 4K and, you know, whatever else comes next. I'm sure there'll be another iteration of it. So that's the kind of stuff that caught me off guard. But yeah, I mean, when we showed it to distributors, they were like, this is really good. How come we haven't heard anything about this? And the truth is, I knew how to make a movie, but I didn't know anything about the Hollywood system. So I didn't know that you usually promote your film. You get people to come, you know, you put ads in the papers and all that and say, now in production. We didn't do any of that. So when we showed these films to these distributors, they were like, holy cow, where'd this come from? And when we told them how we made the movie, that we raised money like we were, you know, like with brokers, and then put it into a fund, and then we made our movie, and everyone said, you can't do that. Well, we did, because we were all too unknowledgeable to know that we couldn't do what we were doing, so we just did it. I always say I'd rather be lucky than good.
Exactly. And it's a testament to, you know, the film's lasting powers that we're here tonight with you. We're going to watch it, and it's a testament to horror fans, like so many of you here, the most loyal fan base in the world that keeps these kind of movies in the zeitgeist and allows us to still celebrate them. And I can't have you up here, though, and not ask you some questions about Night of the Demons.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah!
Thank you for the honks. So that was 1988, and this was a feature that you did not write.
No, I directed it, but I did not write it. And it was by the same executive producer, the guys who... So this was their third film. They'd done another film that was a complete disaster. And I told them, don't make this film. It's going to hurt you. And they did it. And so then when they had Night of the Demons, it came with another director attached, and they were in prep, and this guy just quit. So then Walter, the executive producer, called me and said, we're doing Night of the Demons, and we want you to direct it. And I said, okay. I read the script. I thought the dialogue was great. It was funny. It was topical. I thought, this is funny dialogue, but I thought the story was kind of non-existent. But when he said, what'd you think? I said, this is fucking brilliant. Because I was getting ready to sell my car to pay my rent. So any script that was handed to me was going to be brilliant as far as I was concerned. But once I agreed to do it, then I said, well, okay, now I got to get to work, because the demons don't show up for 45 minutes in a 90-minute movie. So how do I keep this interesting?
Well, you did I mean, there's so many elements of that movie that are interesting. The lipstick scene. I mean, yeah. Linnea Quigley right in the beginning doing
the
great
butt intro.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes. How much of a hand did you have in casting?
Well, the director has all the casting, but I believe in. I took input from Joe, from the executive producer, and from my casting director. There are 3 parts that I might not have cast had I not solicited their input and then listened to them. Amelia Kincaid was not originally my first choice for Angela.
Who was?
Billy, I don't know. Oh. Some actress. I have no idea now. I'm sorry. It's 40 years ago, and I am sundowning. Give me a break here. So,
well, Brad Pitt was famously up for the male lead in the Elvira movie, so that's what I didn't know if it was someone who may have been
he was
on the
busy off doing Cutting Class with Jill Schoelen. So, you know, his bad for, you know, I think we might have cast Brad if he just weren't so unattractive. But yeah, so I wanted someone else for the part of Sal. Billy Gallo. It turns out the guy that I almost hired instead of Billy was actually his best friend, and they go up against each other all the time for parts. And then what was the third one? Maybe it was just those. Kathy Podwell, the lead, Judy. we actually had made an offer to another actress, and when you have someone that you're going to use, you have her come in and read with the other people you're auditioning to see if there's any chemistry. And she just had such a kind of a bitchy attitude. I thought, I don't want to spend the next 4 weeks working with her. So we rescinded the offer and then started looking again, and Kathy Podwell came in, and it was like, well, there's our Judy.
Well, and she was great, but you also have Stooge, Hal
Havens. Yeah, but he was like, he came in, he did it. It was like, well, we found Stooge. There was never anyone even a close second for him. We knew we were going to do him. I was not a horror fan at the time, so I didn't even know who Linnea Quigley was. But our casting director and our producer, writer, Joe, did, and they said, we got to get her in this. I said, okay, she's cute, and she did a nice job in the audition, so I listened to them and said, okay, let's use her.
Well, and, we have to point out that with Alvin Alexis playing Roger, you took a black character and he survived. I mean, that's pretty incredible.
I really can't take a lot of credit for that because that was in the script. The character was written to be black, and he does survive. But I came on after they had already started prepping, so Joe had originally, Judy's little brother follows her to Hull House, and they were the two that survived. But because our budget was so small, you can only use children for a few hours, which means we would have had to extend the schedule to accommodate having a minor on set. So we just said, no, the brother's in the scenes at the house and then he's gone because we can't afford him longer than that. And that's when he came up with the idea of Roger being the survivor.
And it all worked. And
yeah.
I know that we're watching Witchboard tonight. So going back to
the one we're actually watching.
The one we're actually watching. Yeah, I couldn't let you get out of here without asking some Night of the Demons questions. But so we have this wonderful bromance, but then we also have some wonderful sequels. And how many of those have you been involved with?
I wrote and directed part 2, and then I wasn't involved at all with 3 at first. I hired another writer, and he had a script he'd written, and they read it, and they hired him off of that. And I read it, and I said, really? I wasn't that impressed with that script. But they said, yeah, we're going to make it with him. Fine. And then they come back to me and said, his writing, the stuff he's submitting isn't that good. And they hired me to co-write it with him. And I said to him, why don't we just break the script in half? And I wrote the first half and he wrote the second half. And then they sent it up to Canada, and the director pretty much rewrote the second half because he didn't like this other writer's stuff. So anyway, that's how that got made. Other than that, I was not really involved with it. And actually, I wasn't really happy with the way it turned out. And years later, at an industry party, I saw the actress who was the lead in Witchboard 3, but she wouldn't know me because I wrote it and it was shot in Canada and I wasn't on set, so we'd never met. I just knew her from dailies. So I went over to her and I said, hi, you're Lockie Lambert? And she was surprised. She said, yeah, do I know you? And I said, no, but I wrote Witchboard 3 and I just wanted to come over and apologize. So that's how I met Lockie.
I know we have to wrap it up here, but
we're having so much fun.
I know you are a delight. We had such a lovely time.
My hands aren't completely numb yet. I think I can do another 5 minutes. To have seen the lasting power of Witchboard now come full circle with a remake. Yeah.
What does that mean to you to have that kind of moment?
Well, it's the circle of life, Simba, and. I gotta say, it was kind of cool to see the title Witchboard in theaters all over the country again after mine. It's actually a pretty good film. Again, I had nothing to do with it other than he just paid me and gave me an executive producer credit and gave me credit for writing the original script. But they paid me well, so I'm always up for that. And I went and saw it at a private screening and was pleasantly surprised. I thought it was really good. And I had no input, so I can say it sucks or it's good. And I'm not being biased, And I was surprised by how good it was. And then I was equally surprised by how badly it did at the box office. It just, nobody went to see it, even though it's a good film. But I think the marketing was almost non-existent, so that did hurt it. But I mean, you know, so yeah, I was elated to have it in theaters. Sorry it didn't do better.
But you got to keep your car in the end.
I got to keep my car and even upgrade to a better one years and years later.
Well, Kevin, Tenny.
And now I just Uber.
Don't get in a Waymo, just Uber, yeah.
Oh, I want to try a Waymo, actually.
I tried one last week in Austin, and it was terrifying.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, maybe it was a Texas driver.
Texas AI, help us all.
Yeah, you know, can't trust them. We got Simi Valley, so I trust our AI much more.
You're in the thick of it.
Yeah.
Well, Kevin, Tenny, you are a delight and a treasure, and thank you for giving us all of the films that you have, in
You're
particular,
welcome.
Witchboard.
Well, thank you. And I must say, I understand now, you calling me a treasure, that makes sense, because my wife is always trying to bury me. So, thank you. I hope those of you who haven't seen it will like it. I hope those of you who have seen it will also like it. So, without further ado, let's watch Witchboard. Woo!
Yeah!
I like the honks.
Yeah!
All right, guys. It'll be about 2 or 3 minutes. We'll have Witchboard on the screen. Following Witchboard, we're going to be right back up here. Lenora is going to be talking with the director of Jason Goes to Hell, which we'll be showing tonight. And by the way, I can't remember if I mentioned this, Adam is also going to be at the Strand Theater tomorrow at noon, along with his wife Deborah and director Michael Felsher, and they will be doing a Q&A and showing the brand new documentary on the making of Jason Goes to Hell.
Can't wait, Joe. Can't wait.
Right on.